Have you ever had a neighbor who thought your property was basically his property? Someone who kept stealing from you while smiling at your face like nothing was wrong? Well, that's exactly what happened to me, and what started as a small mystery about a disappearing gas can turned into one of the most satisfying revenge stories of my life. Years ago, I lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where people mow their lawns on weekends, wave politely when they see each other, and mostly keep to themselves. It was peaceful, predictable, and honestly, pretty boring. But living next door to me was a guy who completely ruined that peaceful feeling. He was the type of neighbor everyone secretly disliked, but nobody wanted to confront. He always had this strange attitude, like he owned the entire street. He would stare at people from his porch, ask uncomfortable questions, and sometimes wander around other people's yards, pretending he was just looking for his cat or something. At first, I tried to ignore him. I figured every neighborhood has at least one weird guy, so I just focused on my own life. Every Saturday morning, I had a simple routine. I would wake up early, grab my coffee, walk into the backyard, and start mowing the lawn. It was relaxing in a strange way. The smell of fresh cut grass, the quiet hum of the mower, the feeling of finishing something productive before noon. But after a few weeks, I started noticing something strange. Every time I grabbed my red 5-gallon gas can to refill the mower, it felt lighter than it should be. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining things. My lawnmower only held about 1 quart of gas, which meant a full 5-gallon can should last a very long time. Yet somehow it kept running empty far too quickly. One weekend, I picked it up and shook it, and I remember thinking, there's no way I used this much gas. Something didn't add up. I even started questioning my own memory. Maybe I'd used the mower more than usual. Maybe I had forgotten filling something else with gas. But deep down, a little voice in my head kept whispering the same thing. Someone is taking your gas. And slowly, my suspicions started pointing toward one person, my neighbor. The problem was I had absolutely no proof. And back then, this was before cheap home security cameras were everywhere, so installing a fancy camera system wasn't really an option. But I wasn't ready to just let someone keep stealing from me, so I decided to get creative. I grabbed my old laptop, the one with the built-in webcam, and placed it near the back window facing the yard. Then I installed a simple motion detection program. The idea was simple. If anyone stepped into my backyard, the camera would automatically start recording. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I walked out to my car, got inside, and drove away like I usually did. But the entire time, my mind was racing, wondering if my suspicion was right. Hours later, when I came back home, the first thing I did was open my laptop and check the recorded footage. And sure enough, just 5 minutes after I had left the house, the motion detection program activated. The video showed my backyard, completely empty at first, and then, suddenly, there he was, my neighbor, casually walking into my yard like he had every right to be there. He didn't even look around to check if anyone was watching. He just walked straight toward the gas can, picked it up, unscrewed the cap, and started pouring the gas into his own container like it was the most normal thing in the world. After that, he rolled his lawnmower over, filled it up, and then even walked over to his car and poured some gas into the tank, too. The entire time, he looked completely relaxed, like he had done this 100 times before. And when he was done, he calmly placed the gas can back exactly where he found it, closed the lid, and walked away. Watching that footage, I felt my stomach twist with anger. The nerve of this guy! He had been stealing from me over and over again, thinking I would never notice. Part of me wanted to call the police immediately, but another part of me wanted something more satisfying. I wanted him to learn a lesson he would never forget. That's when the idea hit me, and the moment the idea formed in my mind, I couldn't stop smiling because it was going to be perfect. For the next week, I started doing something a little unusual.
Every time I needed to go to the bathroom, instead of using the toilet, I walked outside, opened the gas can, and peed directly into it. At first, I'll admit, it felt ridiculous standing there in my backyard peeing into a gas container, but the more I thought about what my neighbor had been doing, the funnier it became. Day after day, the gas can slowly filled up, and the best part was the strong gasoline smell was still there, strong enough that someone who wasn't paying attention would never notice anything strange. And I knew the kind of careless person who
placing them in the trunk. I even made a fake phone call while standing in the driveway, speaking loudly enough so he could hear me, saying things like, "Yeah, I'm heading out for a few days, and don't worry, the house will be fine." I could feel his eyes watching from across the yard, and that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted him thinking that the coast was clear. After finishing my little show, I got into my car, started the engine, and slowly drove away like I was beginning a long trip. But in reality, I only drove a few streets away and parked the car out of sight. I waited there for about an hour, imagining exactly what was probably happening back at my house. I pictured my neighbor walking into the backyard again with that same confident look on his face, expecting to steal more free gas like he had been doing for weeks. Eventually, I drove back toward my street, and as I turned the corner, I immediately saw something that made me nearly burst out laughing. My neighbor was standing in his front yard next to his lawnmower, pulling the starter cord over and over again with all his strength. He yanked it once, then again and again and again. The mower refused to start, and every time it didn't start, he looked more frustrated. His face turned bright red, sweat covered his forehead, and he started shouting curses loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. I parked my car slowly and watched the scene from a distance, trying my best not to laugh out loud. It was clear that something was very wrong with his machine, but of course I knew exactly what the problem was. After several minutes of struggling with the mower, he kicked the side of it in frustration and stormed over to his car. He jumped inside, slammed the door, and started the engine before speeding down the street, probably hoping to go buy more gas or figure out what had gone wrong. But only a couple of blocks away, his car suddenly stopped completely dead right in the middle of the road. He pulled over to the side, popped open the hood, and stared at the engine, looking completely confused. From where I was sitting, I could see him scratching his head and pacing back and forth, trying to figure out why both his mower and his car had suddenly stopped working. The truth, of course, was simple. He had filled them both with the contents of that gas can, and that gas can was now full of something very different from gasoline. I drove the rest of the way home, parked in my driveway, and walked calmly to the backyard. The red gas can was sitting exactly where I had left it earlier. I picked it up, gave it a little shake, and smiled. It was completely empty. Every last drop had been taken by my greedy neighbor and poured directly into his own machines. Honestly, that moment alone was already satisfying enough, but the story didn't end there, because a few days later I learned something interesting about the guy who lived next door. Apparently,